Burning Sins, Prologue, Part 4. The young man glanced at Kiana before turning his gaze back to the dawn, then down to Anna. The peaceful slumber she appeared to be in was marred by the blood that stained her clothes. Reaching over, he placed his hand on her heart, praying his respects before turning back to his boss. Don Alessandro, I'm responsible for the worst possible thing that can happen to your family. Your wife, your Mal, is dead. Because I didn't take the right choice as far as I should have. I'm not deserving to be a part of this family, but with your permission, as one final service to the new Esecatore del Diavolo, I'm going to finish this. Alessandro was silent for a moment, still hugging the body of his deceased wife. After gulping down the lump in his throat, he pointed at his daughter's soldier. You make them suffer. You hear me? You make them regret the day they crossed the Devil's Enforcers. I want these bastards hit tonight. And I don't care if it's the milkman or the fucking Pope. Whoever it is, whoever sent them, I want the fucker dead. Understood. And I'm sorry. I am so sorry. Alessandro sniffed as he lowered his hand. Son, this ain't on you. You're a damn stupid shit if you think you don't belong here. My wife loved you. She loved your sister. Whether you come back or not, you're a part of this family. If you have to leave with her, though, I ain't going to stop you. This had gone too far. I knew it wasn't a good idea for us to be pushing on the pathogens. They own the northern quarter and spinning fields. I knew so why the fuck didn't I pull out? Nathan watched as the man returns to a rageful, sorrow-driven mess, his underbosses keeping him stable. Nathan took Kiana by the shoulders, pushing her from his chest and sitting himself in front of her. Kiana, I gotta go. You stay here. He took off the blazer of the uniform and set it in her lap. Picking up the present he got for her, he placed it on top, his hand resting on both. You need to be here for your father. As much as you think that ain't enough for him. He needs you. Just as my sister needs me now. He brought the same hand up to her cheek, pressing his forehead to hers as she continued to cry. Hey, thanks for giving us a better life for as long as it lasted. I gotta admit, I didn't expect to fall in love with the mafia boss's daughter. He chuckled to himself as Kiana snapped her attention to him, her eyes wide at the confession. Leaning back, Nathan laughed at her face. Didn't see that one coming, did you? Take care of yourself, Kiana. Maybe somewhere down the line we'll meet again. If not, then probably in the next... Nathan was taken aback when he felt a weight press on him, his lips caught in another as Kiana attached herself to him. A few soldiers and associates whistled and muttered to each other at the spectacle, Alessandro himself momentarily holding it together to give a small smile towards them. Breaking the kiss, Kiana wiped some of the tears away as she hugged the blazer and bracelet to her chest. We will. In either scenario, we will. Be well, Nathan, and save your sister. I'll take care of my father. Nathan opened his mouth, then closed it, blinking to himself at his first kiss. Kiana giggled as the moment turned comedic for her and a few soldiers, reaching out and patting him on the cheek. Shaking himself out of the stupor, he looked back down at her, seeing her teary smile. Staring into her eyes for a brief period, he eventually narrowed his own and nodded, standing up and walking back into the foyer. Retreating to a shared room, Nathan quickly shed the uniform of the new Esecatore del Diavolo. He dropped it onto his bed as he opened the closet. He dug out his old shoes and the second half of Kiana's gift to him. He began to change, dressing himself in a fresh pair of jeans, a black t-shirt, and a brand new unmarked and unstained blue hoodie. Grabbing his backpack and his weapons, he moved towards the door as he put on the former, stopping only to glance at himself in a passing mirror. Examining himself, he found that his new face was marred with scars and grief, a look he'd earned during his various shootouts and bad jobs under the Don's rule. Taking a breath, he grabbed the hem of the hood and brought it over his head, shadowing it from the rest of the outside world. Lowering his arms, He glared into the mirror, anger and hatred present in his eyes while he clenched his fist. Time to go. Feeling remorseful for the things you've done, the ways you've wronged your friends and family, is normal. However, it's always better to let it go. Vengeance is always a fool's game. A labyrinth with no exit. A maze with no prize. Showing remorse for the things you do means you're sincere, and treasure that which you have. Constantly reminding yourself of the hurt you caused will turn you bitter and hateful, and you will distance yourself from those who you love, harming your friendships. Punishing yourself is not going to make anything better for you or those around you. What's done is done. You can only choose what you can do to move on for the better. This was it. Back here once again. After all these months. It felt like years since he ran from here. And now, it was what it really was. A disgusting open graveyard of bastard men who helped take his sister from good people. Murdered an innocent woman stuck with the wrong crowd. Just as he had promised, they were all dead, suffering until the very end. Nathan remembered how he killed each and every one of them. A dozen had stood in his way when he returned to his old home. A dozen that had the upper hand on him almost immediately. They had shot his pistol out of his hands, shattering it to pieces with a well-placed high-caliber shot. He was left with nothing but a knife, and many makeshift weapons he used to stab, slice, or beat into their bodies till there was no life left in them. All that led to this. Standing in front of his house, he stared up at the imposing presence of it. How something that should be welcoming was beckoning him with malicious intent. Looking down at the open front door, he slowly walked inside, his shoes thumping against the floorboard as he made his way to the living room, then towards the kitchen. A manic giggling could be heard coming from the backyard, the slider broken, yet open. Holding the tire iron he snatched from one of the pathogen thugs in his hands, he progressed to the back of his house and out into the backyard. The crazed muttering of his mother's voice drew him closer to a table set up in the middle of the clearing. Only a few trees obscured it from view, but it wasn't long till he bypassed them and settled onto the image that would forever haunt him. His sister, dear little Maya. She was dead. Her body was propped up in a seat, fresh and dry blood trickling down her face. Her expression was one of dulled horror. But it didn't seem to matter, as the woman sitting next to her was talking to her as if she was still alive. Elizabeth, his mother, was nothing like she was before. What was once a skinny, abusive woman was now a feeble skeleton of what that person was. Not only that, but her entire body looked to be sleep-deprived, completely devoid of sustenance beside whatever drug she pumped into her body. She had all but lost it, her mind's trapping her in a delusion as she rambled onto her dead daughter. In that moment, seeing this scene piled onto everything he had done for his sister. All the death, all the crime, all the love, hate, grief, friendships, and sins. For it all to mean nothing in the end. Something just snapped. Nathan's face turned stone cold. No expression visible as he dropped the tire iron, the thunk of metal on dirt, catching his crazed mother's attention.
Nathan, my boy, my sweet little baby, you've returned to me too. You and Maya, you almost had me. You kids and your little tricks and games. I thought you really had left me to die alone in this rotten old house. But then I found some new friends. They told me I could see you again, and that I could find you and bring us all back together like one big happy family.
She turned back to Maya's corpse as Nathan once again slowly walked forwards, making his way around the table as she spoke to what was once Maya.
Do you see, Maya? Do you see? I told you he would come home. I told you. Now we're all here, and nothing will ever separate us again.
She struggled to raise her hands up, her head turning back towards Nathan as he walked towards her, a brick in hand.
Welcome up!
Elizabeth's body swung to the side from the impact of the brick as it crashed into the side of her head, the chair collapsing backwards with her as she tumbled to the ground. Standing over her, Nathan began smashing the brick into his mother's head repeatedly, growing louder and louder every time it came down on her skull. He didn't stop. He couldn't stop. The moment everything fell apart in his mind, all he could see was a cracked interpretation of reality, reddened by the blood splattering onto his face. Eventually he did when everything came back to him. And by the time he was able to grasp reality once more, his mother's head was nothing more than a thick pinkish paste, a brick embedded into it. Stepping away from her, Nathan panted the rest of his aggression out, his eyes panning over to the little sister he failed to protect. He had no words, no apologies left to give. He failed the family who took him in. He failed the sister he swore to protect. He couldn't go back. But what was left going forward? Can he just simply walk away from it all now? Looking back at the corpse he made of Elizabeth, Nathan left their bodies to rot, heading over to the other side of the table and picking up the tire iron. Staring at them as he slung it over his shoulder, he turned and walked away, striding at a slow and defeated pace towards the forest that lied beyond his house. Gradually he disappeared as he ventured onward. His dark color meshed with the shadows of the night, and soon, all that remained was the mess he left behind. The bad life he lived, and the one he knew would forever haunt him. Fuck, man. Dude, I thought she was gonna live this whole time. But as soon as I saw, yeah, she was dead, oh my god, that sucked. I thought both of them were gonna be transported to Equestria, but I guess not. Anyways, let's improve the mood with some positive donators. Top donators: Jessie Smith, Star 630, BadassWaffle, Onlyonething, and Ceru Orion. Matchpick, JockeTF, Luciisu, Darkside, Rayden, Narwhals, Blackmoonheart, Pastel Skies, Austin Rollins, Sword Brother Mordred, Omicron Lyra, Runescythe, Will, Chris, Twinkie, Rysel, Shadowmoon, Luigi, Chancer Crust, Big Smoke, Bobcat, Murder Princess, Jet, Calidus, Little Mighty, and many more amazing people. Thank you all so much for watching this video and live life to the fullest.